got a lot of requests over the years on how to make a clone end carb. On the small Chevy tri-powers with the small Rochester, it's a lot more possible to do because a lot of the parts are made. Just a lot of reasons. If you want to find out how to do that, go to ChevyTripower.com. A friend of mine, Ron Kellogg, runs that. He makes a brand new throttle body we're talking about for the small end carburetors. It would be like a 57 or 8 Pontiac or like a J2 348 or any of the aftermarket street rod stuff. But if you have a Pontiac manifold 59 up with the big carburetors and you want to make a clone end carb, I'm going to explain how to do it and then I'm going to tell you why I won't recommend it. You need a different throttle body. The original throttle body from any 2-barrel has idle circuits. Yes, you can block them, but the main thing is the tri-power end carb has a shaft that extends on both ends. It has a torsion spring on one end. Yes, you could buy a new shaft, put it in your carburetor. You'd find it wouldn't fit. I think you can cut the carburetor down to force it to fit, but you end up modifying so much it's not worth it. The other thing is that the tri-power throttle blades on the end carburetors are 5/64 thick, and the reason for that is so that they'll seal completely tight so you don't have vacuum leaks at idle. The regular 2-barrels, they're 3/64, and they're not made to close all the way because the car couldn't idle on it. So you have a major problem with the original throttle body. You got the idle circuits, not too hard to get rid of. You've got a throttle shaft problem, you got throttle blade problems, and you really need to address all those things or you're going to have trouble with idle. So the new throttle bodies, this one is aluminum. It's made here in the States, and right now, this is 2009, I'm selling them on my webpage for $145. I'm hoping to drop the price soon. I'm hoping to buy some in quantity. You'll see other sources that sell throttle bodies for their cast iron. They're for usually $100 or less. See them on eBay quite a bit for $89 or $79. They're very poor quality. They're made in China. The problem is really the fit. They look good, just visually they look all right, but there's problems with the throttle blades fitting, and you know, if you had 2 of them on, I know you'd have trouble with idle. So don't get those. A lot of the suppliers sell the cast iron one. As of this point, this is the only good one out there. So you've got some money invested in the throttle body. It does come with the levers on both sides, so that's good. If you buy a junk carburetor, you really should have a Pontiac carburetor from the early to mid 60s, maybe in the late 60s. Most of them have a part number on the side. If you're trying to do a nice clone, the original Pontiac throttle body doesn't have a number on it. GM, or I said Rochester, didn't start putting the carburetor numbers on the float bowl section until 1968 or 1969. So if you have a number on there, I mean, if you probably clone an end carb, you might not care. The other thing you'll have to do, this is where the fast idle cam pivots on a regular 2-barrel. It'll interfere with some of your linkage, so you need to just cut that off, cut it short. You can leave this support part on there, but you need to cut most of this off if you're going to make a clone end carb. The other thing you need to do is you don't need a power valve now, so you need to plug where the power valve is. You actually could leave it in there if it's a good power valve. You could just leave it in and ignore it, and I'll tell you why later. You'd need to change both jets. So you've got investment in some jets. You've got some labor on the float bowl. Typically you're going to pay maybe $35 for this carburetor. The other thing is this has a 1 3/16 venturi, very typical of a regular 2-barrel. A real end carb is 1 3/8, so you can either pay a machinist to open it up, or if you're not into performance that much, you can use it the way it is. You really need to buy a tri-power air horn. You know, it doesn't have any accommodations for a power piston, that's why you can leave the power valve in. The primary reason to get the regular air horn is to get the fuel line, the small fitting, to come out toward the driver's fender. On most, I guess I should say all Pontiac 2-barrels, you have a large fitting, actually this one here, that would be facing forward. So if you have this air horn, you're going to have the choke in it. It's taller physically, but the main problem is you've got the large fuel inlet facing forward, and when you put 3 of these carburetors together on the manifold, you can see what happens. especially with the rear carburetor, there's not enough clearance for your fuel line. So if you you really need a new air horn. You can get by without it if you want to fight all those problems and have some kind of rigged up system. The new air horns I sell on the webpage for $99, and it's very well made. It has all the Rochester lettering and everything on it. I've had people say the GM's backwards. That's not really true. Some of the air horns had GM facing the front and some facing the back. It's not a mistake. It wasn't done to kind of get around any kind of copyright laws. Made in China, but it's a very good piece. It comes with the lever on here to hook your accelerator pump to. That's the correct shape and look as well. So when you get done, if you've bought the throttle blade or throttle plate, sorry, for say $135, $145, bought a junk carburetor for say $35, bought an air horn for $100. You still haven't done the machine work on the float bowl section, but you can ignore that if you want to. I guess the thing you'd need then would be the correct set of jets and the pump rods. This is a front carburetor, so you would need to. This pump rod is $750 on the web page. It's special shape. It's not critical that it's shaped like this, but if you don't get the right pump rod, you're bending your own. It's pretty hard to get them so that they're lined up perfectly and not hanging up. This is the rear carburetor pump rod. It's also the same price. So the reason I say that I don't encourage this, if you did all that, you'd have a good functioning end carburetor, very good, just as good as a new one. But you've got too much money wrapped up in it. You could really, for the price of buying all these parts, you could buy a used end carburetor and probably have it restored. And then the other thing is it'd have more value when you got done than one that you cloned up. So it's your decision, but that's what's involved in trying to put together a clone end carb.